There's no flavoring. All right, fishing family, it is week 2 of Winter Quest. As you can see, it's getting cold. We actually have surface ice here in Tennessee on our creeks. I'm surprised it held me that long. I about failed. So it's going to be a little challenging today, I bet. But I've got 3 or 4 pockets in this specific creek I'm going to fish today. I'm going to be trying out some new baits from nedwacky.com. And we're going to talk about which baits are specific for creek fishing in the winter. What's up, fishing family? Hope you guys are doing well. Thank you guys for tuning in to this episode of Winter Quest. Today we're going to be talking about what size of bait do you need to use out in the creeks in the winter to have some level of success. So if you're new to winter creek fishing and you're wanting to learn, you've come to the right place. This whole Winter Quest episode is basically devoted to figuring out how can we fish these creeks in winter and have some level of success and trying to catch between 10 and 15 whether it's largemouth or smallmouth bass during winter. I will say that my first season, my best day ended up being 27. My second best day would end up being 26. So I figured out really quick that you can fish creeks in the winter. So this is going to be, it's going to be our secret. Don't be telling anybody. I'm going to tell you how to catch these fish. So let's keep it on the down low. You and me. Okay, perfect. I know I can trust you. So all right, let's get into this. We're gonna get up here in the creek, start doing a little fishing, and I'll start breaking down 3 different topics. It's going to be presentation, it's going to be hookup ratio, and last but not least, we're gonna cover, does the size of your bait impede the size of bass that you may potentially catch out here in these creeks in winter? All right, guys, let's get to this. All right, so let's see which ones we're gonna use for winter fishing. Picking, oh, even a dragonfly. Wow, I like that. Dragonfly, this I believe is a dead man bait. We've got tube, we've got battle bug. I've got a bad hair day Ned stick. I got my Cinco one. I never had a bad hair day. I got a Helga. That was good. So if I've got these baits and I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to fish for winter creek fishing, this Cinco, a little big, that's going to be more of a spring bait for me. Helgramite, an absolute go-to for me in winter. This dead man bait, 100%, I like that. I like this bad hair day Ned stick, that's a good one. This battle bug, this might be a spring bait for me. Tube, 100%, yes. Dragonfly, I'll probably leave that for a spring bait. And this longer, I'm not sure what they call this one. I do like this, it's a little long, but this is how I would kind of break it out. These 4 would definitely be my winter creek fishing go-tos, and then these would be more of my spring baits. I definitely will try one of these battle bugs as well, but I'm going to start out with, let's see, what I'm going to try. I think I'm going to start out, I like the looks of this dead man bait. All right, let's get this tied up and see how this works. All right, so let's break down item number 1, and that's going to be the size of your bait. So when I first started this whole process with Winter Quest, I kind of in my head thought, hey, maybe the larger baits, it's more calories, maybe that's going to entice those fish more and I'm going to get bites that way. So that's what I actually started out 3 years ago trying. For 2 or 3 weeks I was trying and finally I started getting some little nibbles, and I thought, okay, well, I'm on to something. Here we go, let's see what we can get. It was nibble, and then all of a sudden I'd go to set the hook and I would miss it. I just missed and missed, just time and time again. I finally got frustrated with it, and I figured I was just doing the same thing over and over and getting the same exact result, which was no fish. So I decided, well, I'm going to scale down my bait to something really small and see if that's a creek chub over there, if that's a brim, whatever it is. I'm about to catch him, and I'm going to hold him really close to the camera, and I'm going to be bragging about, like, yeah, baby, check this out. But so either way, I tied on a little bait, cast over there. A couple minutes later, I got the tick, 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 tick. I started feeling it, so I started waiting. I was waiting, and then when I felt like it actually had it, I set the hook. And to my absolute surprise, there was weight on the end of the line. I was like, wait a minute, this isn't a creek chub or a brim. This is something else. I reel that thing in, it's fighting. Sure enough, I had caught my first creek smallie in this my whole challenge and my journey here to figure this out. So I was like, yeah, buddy, hey, maybe they are in here. So after that, I thought, well, I'm just gonna leave the small bait on. I've already caught this guy. And fish after fish after fish, I started catching them. Next couple of weeks, I continued to catch more and more fish. Now, I wasn't catching monster fish, but I was catching those 10 to 13 inch smallies. But I was going to stick with it. I thought, well, right now the small bait's working. I'm not going to change that. I'm going to stick with it. So I kept doing that. To my surprise, a couple weeks later, I got my first 14. Next week, I got a 15 and a half. The following week, a 16. And I'm like, oh my God, a 16? There's no way I thought I would get one this big. It didn't stop there. The rest of the winter, I got up to 17, 17 and a half, 18, 18 and a half. I went all the way up to where I caught two 20-inch smallmouth bass in a creek in the middle of winter, and I was absolutely hooked. At that point, I knew that I could do this. So I was like, well, I'm just going to keep building off of the knowledge that I've got. So the small baits worked for there. So let's break it back into now to part 2, and that is the hook set. So going to the smaller bait, what it did for me, and I'm basing this off of data that I've got. So these are facts that I've compiled over 3 years. I lost more fish with my hook sets on the larger baits. All right, so think of it this way. You're going to have to slow down the time frame it's going to take for you to set that hook. So during that time frame that you're giving those fish ample time to come up and assess that bait, to figure out if it's a potential food source for them, it could be that they become disinterested or actually figure out it's not a true food source, and then you end up losing your one opportunity to get that hook set because they just have had too much time to assess your bait. So basically what it is, I was giving those bass too much real estate. Let's just say you've got a 6-inch Senko and you've got it Texas rigged, and your hook's probably 2 inches long. You're giving that bass 4 inches of real estate there without any terminal tackle in it. So these fish are lethargic in the winter. Sometimes they're not just going to come up and hammer that bait. They may come and pick the tail up and chew on it for a second and spit it out. And so then a lot of times what I was doing is I was feeling that initial bite, and I'd go to set the hook. Well, they weren't up to my hook. All they were was holding on to the tail end. I just ended up with a ton of short strikes. So that's where I kind of thought, okay, well then by scaling down, what I'm doing is I'm fishing something that's no more than 3 inches long. And based on the shank of my hook, realistically, there's only about 1 inch to 1.5 inches of that soft plastic that doesn't have the hook in it. So I'm increasing my odds of catching those fish. And to my surprise, it worked. I started landing the fish. My hookup ratio went through the roof. Whereas before with the larger baits, I just was getting a lot of short strikes. So that's kind of my philosophy there, and that's what's worked. Once again, this is based off of data that I've compiled going on 3 years now. And last, let's go into part 3. A lot of people may think, well, it's like, yeah, I don't want to be out here just catching, 7, 8 inch smallies. I get that. Now for me, I don't really care. I love creek fishing. I would rather be out here catching 10-inch smallies than out at the lake fighting the boats and everybody else. But I'm not gonna lie, I wanted to catch bigger fish too as well. But the thing that I did find out was that the forage for these fish in the winter changes. So they're not feeding on large baits. So part of the statement where you hear people say the creeks shut down in winter, that's partially accurate. A more correct description of what happens is you are going to have some of the larger fish are going to start migrating out in the fall. They have more dexterity, they're stronger, they're going to be able to swim out those longer distances. Your smaller guys, once again, they're in a little more risk of getting out in deeper water, potentially getting eat. Once again, they don't have the muscle strength as those bigger fish do. So some of those do tend to hold over in here. So I would say the greater concentration of fish that you're going to find in the creeks in the middle of winter will be your smaller guys. So that's where you're going to benefit from scaling down your bait to that smaller bait, because you're going to miss less fish. If I can go out and catch 10 guys, let's just say I catch 10 inch, 11 inch guys, and then I end up catching one 15 inch guy,
There we go.
I'll take that over trying to go out and just catch that one 15 inch guy. So by scaling down, once again, you're increasing the probability that you're going to hook up more fish that are biting on that, because it's likely that they are going to be the smaller guys. But still, once again, when the creeks do shut down, the forage habit for these fish changed. The baits that they were feeding on in the summer months are no longer there. They're looking for more smaller things, crawdads, maybe hellgrammites if they haven't already burrowed down in the mud, aquatic bugs, small little bitty bait fish that can't actually swim out of these creeks. They're stuck in here. So they're already in the mindset of feeding on those smaller baits. So for me, I felt like I'm just going to match what they're already feeding on in the winter. They're already used to seeing that. So it seemed to work, and it did not limit the size of fish that I caught. Once again, I caught two 20-inch smallmouth in the middle of winter here in Tennessee on a 2.5-inch hellgrammite. At that point, I was like, there's no reason to go up to anything bigger. I'm really catching the top of the scale of the bass that's in these creeks. I mean, you're looking for those guys in the summer, and to be able to catch those guys in the winter. Now, I would love to know why those guys hold out in the winter over in the creeks. Some of them, now I know some of the creeks I'm fishing, there are no structures or barriers that's impeding their way of getting out. But some of the waters that you guys may fish, you may watch for dams or spillways. Those are good areas that you could go fish, because it's very possible there might be 15-mile of creek in behind that spillway. You've got a deep area there, and that may be deep enough to hold those fish. They don't want to get injured going over that spillway, so they just stay right there in that area and maybe migrate in between that 10-15-mile stretch in the creek. So that's something to look for. Guys, once again, scale your baits down. Small baits will help you catch more fish. I promise. This is based on data and facts that I've been compiling, and I wouldn't tell you wrong. I want to help you guys catch more fish. There's no books, there's no manual. So when I started doing this, it was trial by fire. I had to just get out here, try, fail. What worked? Okay, let's build off that success. What failed? Okay, well, let's learn from that failure and improve it and see if we can figure out how to catch fish. All right, guys, so let's get into the creek and let's start trying to catch some fish so we can put this to the test. Once again, I want to show you guys that you can catch smallmouth or largemouth bass in the creeks here in winter, and especially in Tennessee over the winter months on these smaller baits. Let's get to it. I know these smallies forage for crawls now. Right now, during this time of year, I did actually see one last week crawling on the surface, but generally they're going to start burrowing down in the mud. And I've even heard reports from TWRA having studies done in the past where they've had footage where they've seen smallies burrowing down in the mud in winter, trying to get down to those crawdads. So maybe this battle bug is going to be a really good bait, because it's like, I know they're foraging for them. They may see that and be like, ooh, I want that. Another thing I will do, I'm fishing fluorocarbon, so I will regularly just retie my bait, because in wintertime you're going to be working down in those rocks. You want to get down in those rocks where those smallies are, working it slow, so you're going to be ticking that tip of that jig head along a lot of rocks, and you're going to end up potentially nicking your line. So it's real good to retie those up quite often, because I can feel right now I'm just ticking all on the bottom. Well, I didn't even have my camera on. Come here, buddy. Come here. Well, I didn't even have my camera on. He picked up this battle bug with ease, but it's like, hang on, buddy, let me get it out of your mouth. He scooped it up. These fish are extremely, they're really cold. Man, they're really cold. Yeah, these fish are, man, he's so cold. And I got him on that battle bug. I like that. I knew that looked good. I can't believe I didn't even have my camera on. Just the second you let your guard down, you catch a fish. I mean, and I didn't, as sensitive as his rod is, I did not even feel him pick it up. Honestly, he must have just scooped it up and just sat there, because as soon as I started retrieving my line, I felt tension. I thought it was grass or a limb that I was hung up on, so I didn't want to put a lot of pressure into it and get it hooked up into it. But then I was like slowly retrieving it. I'm like, well, it's like I'm pulling it in, and the more I started getting in, I felt more and more tension on, and then all of a sudden I felt him shake his head. And I set the hook real quick. But I know there's some big ones down there. I've seen them. All right, I think we're gonna walk up just a little bit. I'm gonna fish this, and then I may walk back and give that section just a little bit, because I might be getting in a bite window. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe today, with as cold as it is, there's just gonna be a small bite window. And maybe I'm getting lucky and I'm just now starting to get into that bite window and just getting lucky to catch that one here. I'm gonna keep moving just a little bit. I'm just gonna walk. I'm not gonna get stagnant in the spot until I get a nibble. Once I get a nibble, is that a nibble? Is that rocks? I'm in rocks. As I was saying, until I really get bites, I'm just going to kind of keep moving until I get to the deep pockets to where I know I've had success. If you're kind of new to winter creek fishing, first season may be a little tougher than others, because you may have to kind of put in a lot of time trying to find those one areas where those fish are held up. But once you find it, then you'll be able to come back and retest it the following season to see, are they there again? And most of the time they are. Unless something has drastically changed with the creek to where water levels have reduced drastically or something like that. I'm definitely seeing more. Got a bite, got a bite. All right. This feels good. This feels good. Feels good. It feels good. It feels good. Whew, golly. All right, come here, buddy. This is probably, I'm going to say, the largest fish I've caught so far on my new K-Custom. It is. Yes, sir. Come here, buddy. Come here. Come here. Come here, bud. Let's get you. All right. All right. Hey, we're not getting skunked, and this is a decent fish. Good creek smallie. Nice. Man, he put up a good fight. Especially on this K-Custom rod. This is my newer rod. Man, that was a good fight. Man, that was a good fight. All right, guys. That's a beauty right there. Whoo, this water's cold. All right, guys. Perfect example. Whew, got my sleeve a little wet. That just shows you, you do not have to use large baits when it comes to creek fishing in winter. I'm going to give you about 3 reasons why I think smaller baits will help you increase the amount of fish that you catch during winter. First, once again, this is what they're foraging for in the winter. These winter months get here, a lot of stuff moves out of these creeks. You're going to have stuff left over like your crawfish or hellgrammites. Even when it gets really cold, they're going to start burrowing down in the mud and go dormant. So whatever's left over in here is going to be small. Those fish are used to seeing small. So you want to match your presentation to what they're already seeing. That's not to say that they're not going to hit something big, but I think if they're already in the mindset of feeding on smaller baits, then that's what I'm going to do. And that's what's given me success so far during Winter Quest. Number 2 is going to be your hook set and the ratio of your hook sets that you're getting. So the one thing that I've noticed, and this is not something that someone's told me or something I've read in a book, it's based on experience that I've had this going into the 3rd year of doing this, is if you give those fish too much real estate without terminal tackle in it, as cold as they are, they may come up and pick up the tail end of it and sit there for a couple seconds checking on it and chewing on it, and then you think, I've got them. You go to set the hook and you've given them so much real estate that maybe that 3 or 4 inch piece of that Cinco worm they've got in their mouth, well then you just pull it right out of their mouth. My mindset was scale down something smaller, Hellgrammite or a tube, something that's, you know, the terminal tackle is going to be right at the tail end, especially if you're fishing a bait that's buoyant. That's one thing nice about these NedWacky.com baits is they are super buoyant, so they stand upright. So if you've got about a 2.5 inch, 3 inch bait, based on the length of your shank of your hook, you got very little area there that they are, I mean, they're going to get it in their mouth on that first go. So that gives you a better opportunity of getting that hook set. And 3, lastly, going to a smaller bait, as you can see right there, does not mean that you're not going to get bigger smallmouth. I have everything that I've caught in the winter all the way up to 20 inch smallmouth, which isn't crazy to me in the middle of winter. I have done on a 2.5 inch Hellgrammite. You don't need a massive bait to catch big fish in the creeks when it comes to winter creek fishing. I hope these tips will help you. Let's get back to some fishing. All right, guys, I hope these 3 tips will help you guys increase the amount of fish that you're catching in the creeks during winter. Once again, it's challenging. I'm not going to say it's not. It is. But if we can work and kind of knock out some of these little problems we do, it will definitely increase the likelihood you're going to land more fish in these creeks during winter. I hope that helps you. You guys be safe. We'll see you really soon.